Lively is dumb, and I mean really dumb. She has told on herself so many times, and people digging up old videos. Take a listen to her.
Little pink sticker where I'm supposed to go and say what I'm supposed to say, but I also knew that that wasn't fulfilling for me, that I wanted to be a part of the storytelling, that I wanted to be a part of.
Marvel fans were left in shock when news broke that the studio had taken the unprecedented step of suing Blake Lively. Known for handling legal disputes privately, Marvel's decision to take action against a major Hollywood star sent shockwaves through the industry. But what could have possibly pushed them to this drastic move? According to insiders, the lawsuit stemmed from allegations that Blake mishandled confidential Deadpool-related material, possibly using classified details to her advantage. Some sources even whispered that she leaked key elements to manipulate public perceptions surrounding her own growing controversies. The idea that an actress with a long-standing squeaky clean reputation could be entangled in such a high-stakes betrayal left fans stunned. Deadpool and Blake, two names never expected to collide, were suddenly at the center of a spiraling legal firestorm. Marvel's bold move signaled that whatever happened behind closed doors was serious enough to warrant public legal intervention. For months, rumors had been swirling about tensions brewing in Blake's career, but no one imagined it would escalate into a standoff with one of Hollywood's most powerful studios. Initially, this drama had nothing to do with Marvel. It all began when Blake signed on for a highly anticipated film adaptation under the direction of Justin Baldoni. Fans were thrilled about the project, expecting a film filled with emotional depth and cinematic magic. However, that excitement quickly faded as behind-the-scenes tensions started surfacing, hinting at deeper issues that would soon explode into the mainstream. Reports suggest that Blake clashed with Justin Baldoni over his tight grip on the project. Not only was he directing, but he had also co-written the script and planned to star in the film, essentially overseeing every creative aspect. Insiders claim Blake felt her creative input was being sidelined, with Justin controlling every decision, non-set. Frustrations grew as she reportedly felt her voice being drowned out by his influence. Initially, their creative disagreements remained private, but things took a dramatic turn when Blake decided to go public, setting off a chain reaction of controversies that would ultimately bring Marvel into the mix. Now, the question remains, what exactly did Blake do that led Marvel to take such extreme legal action? And how will this impact her career moving forward? Stay tuned as this Hollywood battle continues to unfold.
Little pink sticker where I'm supposed to go and say what I'm supposed to say, but I also knew that that wasn't fulfilling for me, that I wanted to be a part of the storytelling, that I wanted to be a part of the narrative, whether that be in the writing and the costume design and creating the character. And sometimes I had directors or producers or writers who would welcome that and invite that once they saw that I was able to offer that. And sometimes I would have people who really resented that because they were like, we just hired you to be an actor. Yet when I went in the meetings, I would just seem like I'm just there to be the actor and ready to get the gig. I wouldn't reveal that I actually need to have authorship in order to feel fulfilled. So I think that for them, sometimes that might have felt like a rug pull because you're like, you're trying to assert yourself into something that we didn't hire you to do. And so it was a really strange position to be in because I felt like I don't want to just be an actor. I want to have more authorship. So I think that it's about knowing what I want and what I need.
Blake Lively accused Justin Baldoni of deliberately planting damaging stories about her in the press, portraying her as difficult and overbearing. Her claims quickly made headlines, sending shockwaves through Hollywood. Given the industry's long history of powerful figures manipulating narratives, many were inclined to believe her. Fans immediately rallied to her side, especially those who had seen women in entertainment face unfair portrayals time and time again. But then came a bombshell that flipped the script entirely. Justin and his team fired back with receipts. Entire chains of text messages that told a very different story. Instead of Justin being the mastermind behind the negative press, the evidence suggested that Blake herself was pulling the strings. The messages reportedly showed her making calculated moves, even threatening to leverage her own powerful network, one that allegedly included none other than her husband, Ryan Reynolds, a Hollywood heavyweight backed by the billion-dollar Deadpool franchise. The revelation stunned onlookers. Was Blake the real puppet master all along, using her industry connections to control the narrative? The controversy had suddenly taken a new turn, and the stakes had never been higher. Whispers of secret calls, cryptic conversations, and high-stakes media maneuvers spread like wildfire. Suddenly, the focus wasn't just on Justin Baldoni, it was on Blake herself. What initially seemed like a case of a powerful man silencing a woman quickly morphed into something far murkier. Public perception began to shift, and instead of being viewed as the victim, Blake was now under scrutiny as the possible mastermind behind the chaos. At first, it seemed like just another Hollywood feud. Messy, dramatic, but ultimately industry standard. However, everything changed when the controversy crossed into Marvel territory. And not just any Marvel property. Deadpool, the franchise that Ryan Reynolds had fought to bring to life, had evolved from an underdog project into a billion-dollar juggernaut for the studio. Ryan's comedic genius was so deeply tied to the character that audiences saw him as irreplaceable. His off-screen charm, relentless marketing creativity, and seamless embodiment of the wisecracking anti-hero made him one of Marvel's most valuable assets. For years, Ryan and Marvel had been an unshakable team, but now, cracks were beginning to show. As Blake's dispute with Justin escalated, so did rumors that Ryan's influence and even Marvel's closely guarded secrets had somehow been pulled into the chaos. What started as a personal conflict was now turning into an industry-wide storm, with repercussions that could shake Hollywood's most powerful players. Insiders speculated that confidential Deadpool-related intel had somehow been used to reshape Blake Lively's public narrative. Could she really have leaked classified details about upcoming Marvel projects to divert attention from the negative press surrounding her? At first, it sounded absurd, until Marvel's legal team started digging. Behind the scenes, the studio's lawyers quietly pored over documents, investigating whether Blake had accessed or disclosed sensitive details about Deadpool's future. The idea that Marvel's most prized franchise could be weaponized in a personal Hollywood dispute seemed unthinkable, yet the theory wouldn't die down. Even fans struggled to connect the dots. How could a Deadpool leak possibly help Blake? In a film feud, the simplest explanation. Any leaked snippet, whether a surprise cameo, a major plot twist, or even unfinished script details, was guaranteed to dominate headlines. And headlines meant distraction. If Blake had orchestrated a leak, it would have been the ultimate Hollywood power move, shifting attention away from her own industry drama while setting the internet ablaze with speculation. If she wanted to erase coverage of her alleged behind-the-scenes power plays, what better way than dropping a Deadpool bombshell? Imagine a rumored Avengers cameo suddenly hitting the press. Fans would go wild, reporters would scramble, and overnight, all eyes would be on Marvel's next blockbuster instead of Blake's escalating disputes. Given that Ryan Reynolds is at the very core of the Deadpool franchise, it wasn't far-fetched to assume Blake had access to highly sensitive Marvel secrets, the kind of information the studio protects with ironclad security. But what began as whispers turned into a full-blown legal inferno when Marvel took the unprecedented step of filing a formal lawsuit. The studio, typically tight-lipped about internal conflicts, released a statement alleging that an individual had deliberately misused classified intellectual property tied to a major franchise. They didn't name names, but it didn't take long for sources to confirm they were referring to Blake Lively. Behind closed doors, Marvel insiders revealed that the studio believed Blake had either leaked or threatened to leak Deadpool's closely guarded secrets, all as part of a calculated strategy to shift attention away from the firestorm surrounding her professional disputes. The moment the news broke, Hollywood was in uproar. Marvel had never, in its entire history, filed a legal case like this, especially not against a major star's spouse, and not just any star, but Ryan Reynolds, the face of Deadpool himself. This wasn't some routine Hollywood dispute over contracts or creative differences. This was about alleged sabotage from within. Someone with direct access to Marvel's most valuable franchise was now being accused of using that access as leverage. Industry insiders were stunned. If Marvel's allegations had any merit, it meant a massive breach of trust had occurred, one that could damage one of the studio's biggest A-list partnerships. Could the Reynolds Lively empire, once considered unshakable, be unraveling under the weight of these explosive claims? The entertainment world watched as the drama unfolded. Blake's team wasted no time in firing back. Her representatives vehemently denied any wrongdoing, insisting she had never been privy to Deadpool's confidential details, let alone leaked them. They slammed Marvel's lawsuit as baseless, claiming the studio was using her as a scapegoat for broader internal Leaks that had nothing to do with her, but there was one problem: the unedited messages from her feud with Justin Baldoni. These texts, already making waves in Hollywood, painted a very different picture. They suggested that Blake was no stranger to pulling strings behind the scenes when it suited her. And if those messages were any indication, this legal battle was far from over. Now, the question loomed. Just how far was Blake willing to go? The controversy was no longer just about a lawsuit. It had become a battle of power, influence, and the lengths Blake was, or wasn't, willing to cross. Meanwhile, Ryan Reynolds, the king of quick-witted social media comebacks, was noticeably silent. The man who could spin any crisis into a viral joke had suddenly vanished from the conversation, sparking rampant speculation. Some believed he had gone into full-blown damage control, working behind the scenes to protect both his career and his wife. Others suspected something far worse. Was Ryan feeling trapped between loyalty to his spouse and his loyalty to Marvel? His dilemma was impossible to ignore. If he publicly defended Blake, he risked damaging his long-standing relationship with Marvel, the very studio that had transformed him into one of Hollywood's biggest stars. But if he stayed neutral, or worse, sided with Marvel's concerns, it would send a clear signal about the state of his marriage. The pressure was mounting, and with each passing day, Ryan's silence only fueled the speculation. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni, the man who had unknowingly sparked this Hollywood wildfire, found himself in the center of a media storm. His intention had simply been to clear his name, defending his creative choices against Blake's accusations. But instead, he was now drowning in questions that had nothing to do with his film. Carefully choosing his words, Justin reiterated that his only goal had been to set the record straight. But at this point, the storm he had stepped into was far bigger than anything he had anticipated. Justin Baldoni never expected to find himself entangled in a full-blown Marvel controversy. In interviews, Justin Baldoni admitted he was stunned that the entertainment giant had entered the fray. At first, he had dismissed the feud as standard Hollywood clashing. But now, if Blake had truly weaponized Deadpool's secrets to manipulate media narratives, the stakes were far higher than he had ever imagined. Despite the media frenzy, Justin carefully distanced himself from the escalating war, insisting that his only focus was finishing his film rather than fueling a battle that had already spiraled beyond control. But Marvel was all in. Their lawsuit hinted at major breaches of confidentiality, financial damages, and even contractual violations. While they kept the exact figures and demands under wraps, legal experts speculated that this wasn't just about money. Marvel was likely gunning for a court-ordered injunction to prevent any further leaks of sensitive franchise details. This wasn't just a lawsuit. It was a warning shot to anyone who dared tamper with their intellectual property. And then came the most explosive possibility of all: depositions. If the case moved forward, Marvel's legal team could demand phone records, emails, and text logs from both Blake and Ryan to determine whether confidential Deadpool information had actually been used as leverage. Given how personal this battle had become, it was almost certain that private messages would be dragged into the public eye. If that happened, the fallout wouldn't just affect Blake, it could shake the entire Reynolds Lively empire. Suddenly, Hollywood saw this feud for what it really was: a power shift in the making. What had started as a small-scale spat between Blake and Justin had now escalated into a high-stakes battle that could alter A-list alliances forever. Could Ryan Reynolds realistically continue as the face of Deadpool if his wife stood accused of sabotaging the very studio behind his success? Would Marvel tolerate keeping him in their billion-dollar franchise if his personal connections became a liability? This wasn't just a lawsuit anymore. It was a reckoning. Fans found themselves locked in a bitter divide. On one side, loyal supporters refused to believe that Blake would ever sabotage something that had done so much for Ryan's career. Deadpool hadn't just been a hit, it had been a resurrection. Ryan had gone from a comedy actor with a streak of flops to a blockbuster powerhouse, all thanks to the wisecracking anti-hero he had fought so hard to bring to the big screen. Why would Blake ever risk torching that? But not everyone saw her as innocent. Another faction pointed directly at the damning text messages from her feud with Justin Baldoni. If those messages proved anything, it was that Blake knew how to play the game. To them, she wasn't just an actress, she was a strategist. And if controlling the narrative meant a little collateral damage, so be it. The theory gained even more traction when her own attorney abruptly dropped her case, citing irreconcilable. differences with her version of events. Was that a smoking gun? Had her own legal team lost faith in her defense? And then the rumors became receipts. Smaller entertainment outlets began reporting that they had received exclusive tips from sources close to Blake, teasing upcoming Deadpool cameo appearances, plot twists, and even script rewrites. At first, these reports seemed like the usual Hollywood gossip, until someone made a connection. Marvel's lawsuit allegedly included time-stamped evidence linking these leaks to the exact period when Blake was under the most intense media scrutiny. If those receipts held up in court, it would be damning. It would mean that at the peak of Blake's backlash over her feud with Justin, top-secret Marvel details conveniently found their way into the press. If that was deliberate, it would be one of the most calculated Hollywood leaks in recent memory. As more details surfaced, the media firestorm hit a breaking point. The tabloids couldn't get enough. Speculation spun out of control. Every entertainment site, podcast, and social media platform was obsessed with one question. Was Blake Lively? Reporters swarmed outside Blake and Ryan's home. Cameras rolling, microphones ready, waiting for anything. Every move the couple made, or didn't make, was scrutinized to exhaustion. Even the slightest shift in their social media activity sent fans into overdrive. Would Blake try to quietly settle out of court to avoid further damage? Or was she preparing a countersuit, claiming that Marvel had unfairly targeted her as a scapegoat? Then came the wildest rumor yet. Blake might issue a public apology, spinning the entire controversy as a misunderstanding that had spiraled out of control. Some speculated that if she framed it right, she could save face while de-escalating the situation before it became completely unfixable. But day after day passed with no resolution. The speculation never stopped, yet concrete answers remained elusive. Marvel, however, wasn't budging. They stood firm on their lawsuit, making it crystal clear that they wouldn't tolerate leaks. Intentional or otherwise. Insiders at the studio doubled down, telling journalists that protecting Marvel's brand and secrecy was non-negotiable. This wasn't just about one lawsuit, it was about maintaining the integrity of a billion-dollar cinematic universe. For years, Marvel had gone to extreme lengths to keep leaks at bay. Strict NDAs, top-tier security on set, coded scripts, even digital tracking of confidential files. Every layer was designed to prevent exactly this kind of breach. If the wife of one of their biggest stars had found a way around those defenses to manipulate media narratives, this wasn't just a scandal, it was a full-scale crisis. And then, at last, Ryan Reynolds broke his silence. With the world watching, he dropped a carefully worded statement on a personal platform. No jokes, no quips, no distractions. He kept it short and direct. Ryan expressed immense respect for Marvel and said he was committed to ensuring the situation was resolved fairly, but there was one glaring omission. He never mentioned Blake. No defense, no denial, no support. Just a vague, neutral nod to the studio that made him a superstar. To fans, it was louder than any declaration. Was this Ryan's way of distancing himself from Blake's legal nightmare? Or was he caught between protecting his career and standing by his wife? Either way, the world wasn't just watching anymore. They were dissecting every word. Curiously, Ryan never outright defended Blake in his statement. He didn't claim she was innocent. He didn't suggest Marvel was in the wrong. His silence spoke volumes. Instead, he remained carefully neutral, likely because he was stuck in an impossible situation. If he alienated Marvel, his career could take a hit. But if he publicly threw his wife under the bus, his personal life could spiral into chaos. The world waited for Blake's reaction, but she gave no immediate response. Behind the scenes, insiders whispered that the tension between them was growing. The once playful, flirty social media banter that fans adored, gone. In its place were sterile promotional posts, offering no insight into their private dynamic. Was this a calculated strategy? A united front behind closed doors, carefully mapping out a plan to disprove Marvel's claims? Or had real friction set in? Some believed Ryan had no idea about Blake's alleged leaks until now. That theory painted him as blindsided by how far things had escalated, struggling to manage the fallout while keeping his billion-dollar partnership with Marvel intact. If that were true, it would explain why he was walking a tightrope, neither defending Blake nor condemning her actions. Hollywood knew what was at stake. If Marvel's lawsuit unearthed concrete proof that Blake had strategically leaked classified, Deadpool intel, her career could suffer a long-term freeze. Studios might blacklist her. unwilling to risk working with someone capable of such high-stakes industry manipulation. Even if she avoided legal consequences, the stain of the allegations alone could follow her for years. But what if Marvel couldn't deliver hard evidence? If their claims fell apart in court, Blake's reputation might eventually recover. Still, Hollywood never forgets. Even unproven whispers of industry betrayal could make future opportunities harder to come by. Marvel, on the other hand, faced its own gamble. If they pushed too hard and fans viewed them as overly aggressive, they risked turning public opinion against them. But the fact that they had taken such a drastic legal step suggested they truly believed they had something big. Meanwhile, Justin Ichio's Baldoni was just trying to finish his movie. Despite being the unintentional spark that ignited this industry firestorm, he managed to wrap up principal photography on his adaptation. When asked about Marvel's lawsuit, he chose his words carefully, admitting that it was surreal to watch a personal on-set dispute spiral into an all-out war involving one of the biggest studios on the planet. Yet the fallout was far from over. Justin. Baldoni couldn't help but acknowledge the fans trapped in the chaos. Some desperately wanted Blake to be cleared, believing she was being unfairly scapegoated. Others stood loyal to Marvel, unwilling to tolerate any perceived betrayal of the brand. And then there were those who were simply stunned, watching as what should have been a behind-the-scenes industry squabble exploded into a full-blown Hollywood spectacle. Even members of his own crew admitted they never imagined their film's production drama would spiral this far. As the legal battle dragged on, one reality became impossible to ignore. This outcome wouldn't just affect Blake's future, it could also reshape Deadpool itself. Marvel is meticulous about long-term planning, weaving characters and storylines into an interconnected cinematic universe. If trust between Ryan Reynolds and the studio crumbled, or if Marvel decided they needed to reassess his future, the Deadpool franchise could take a drastic turn. The wisecracking, fourth wall breaking, anti-hero that fans, the Deadpool franchise may be facing its biggest shakeup yet. If Marvel saw Ryan's personal ties to Blake as a liability, the studio could be forced to rethink its trajectory, whether that meant delaying Deadpool, or in the worst-case scenario, recasting the wisecracking anti-hero altogether. Meanwhile, Blake found herself backed into a corner, facing relentless scrutiny. Insiders claimed she was considering a direct appeal to Marvel's leadership, potentially offering full access to her phone logs and personal records to prove she had never explicitly leaked Deadpool secrets. If she could demonstrate her innocence, it might put pressure on Marvel to back down. But skeptics weren't convinced. Those who had closely examined her messages from the Justin Baldoni dispute pointed out a troubling pattern. Blake had a way of implying things, without ever stating them outright. If Marvel's internal investigation had uncovered links between her circle and key leaks, the case might hinge on one powerful yet subtle question. Were her messages just carefully worded disclaimers or calculated deniability? For fans, the situation was deeply conflicting. They had admired Blake for years. Her charm, her impeccable fashion, her seemingly unfiltered yet polished persona. But at the same time, they were die-hard Marvel loyalists, and Deadpool, the very character that revitalized Ryan Reynolds' career, was too important to the franchise for them to ignore the possibility of real damage. With no immediate resolution in sight, one thing was clear. This wasn't just another Hollywood feud. It was a battle that could reshape careers, legacies, and one of Marvel's most beloved properties. With Marvel locked in a legal showdown against Blake Lively, fans found themselves torn. Both were widely beloved, but for entirely different reasons. Marvel was a cinematic powerhouse, fiercely protective of its billion-dollar empire. Blake was a Hollywood darling, known for her talent, charm, and carefully cultivated public persona, whose side to take, online debates erupted. Was Marvel taking things too far, flexing its legal muscle over a personal feud gone public? Or were they completely justified in defending their closely guarded empire against potential leaks? The entertainment world watched as Hollywood insiders labeled this entire mess a cautionary tale, a glaring example of what happens when big personalities and even bigger franchises collide in the worst possible way. One moment, Blake was a respected actress caught in a minor disagreement with the director. The next, she was embroiled in a legal battle with one of the most powerful entertainment brands on the planet. The harsh reality, Even A-list status doesn't grant immunity when it comes to studio secrets. If a celebrity steps too close to confidential, high-stakes projects, even the biggest names can find themselves facing serious consequences. But where does this all lead? No one knows for sure. Hollywood lawsuits are notoriously unpredictable. In many cases, hush-hush settlements bring things to a quiet close, avoiding the ugly spectacle of a drawn-out, highly public trial. If that happens, the real truth behind these allegations could remain forever sealed, leaving fans guessing about what truly went down behind closed doors. But if neither side backs down, things could get explosive. The lawsuit could escalate to depositions, where Marvel's legal team might demand communications, emails, and phone records that either confirm or destroy their case. If that happens, private Hollywood dealings could be laid bare, giving the public a rare, unfiltered look into the industry's inner workings. Whether this ends quietly or blows up into a courtroom war, one thing is certain: stardom is more fragile than it seems. One wrong move, one miscalculated power play. And even Hollywood's biggest stars can find themselves fighting for survival. Even at the very top, stardom is never guaranteed. One day, you're owning the red carpet, basking in admiration. The next, you're embroiled in a lawsuit with one of the most powerful forces in entertainment history. Blake Lively's situation is a harsh reminder that in an industry built on billion-dollar franchises and even bigger egos, the line between